I still remember the sound of my father's cash register. It wasn't just the clink of the coins. It was the sound of trust. Back then, a dollar meant something. And a man's word meant even more. But I had to lose almost everything to understand that. If you like stories that warm the heart and remind us of what truly matters, subscribe to the channel. And stay with me until the end. Because this story might touch you more than you imagine. Now, sit with me on the porch. The sun is setting. And this story begins many years ago. I grew up in a small town where everyone knew each other by name. My father owned a grocery store on the corner of Main Street. It wasn't big. The floors were old wood that creaked under the farmer's boots. The smell of fresh coffee mingled with sawdust and tobacco. There, people didn't just buy groceries. They bought trust. Many customers didn't have money that day. My father would write it down in a small brown notebook. "He'll pay when he can," he'd say. And they always paid. I thought it was strange. Why trust so much? But to my father, wealth wasn't in the cash register. It was in his reputation. In those days, a man's word was worth more than a contract. And I didn't understand that yet. I was 22 when I told my father I wanted something bigger. The town was too small. The store was too small. His dreams were too small. I wanted tall buildings, fast money, big business. My father just looked at me in silence. "Money is important, son, but it has never been the most important thing." I laughed. I thought he was old-fashioned. The next morning, I took a bus to the big city. I promised I would come back rich. But I didn't promise I'd come back whole. The big city didn't smell like fresh coffee or creaky wooden floors under worn boots. It smelled like haste, ambition, wet concrete after the rain. The buildings were too tall to see the whole sky. People walked too fast to look into each other's eyes. There, nobody knew my name, and for a while, I liked it that way. I got a job at an investment firm. At first, I just watched. Men in suits talked about millions as if it were pocket change. Deals were made in minutes. Decisions that affected entire families were made between one coffee and the next. I learned fast. I learned to smile even when I didn't trust. I learned to shake hands without really shaking them. I learned that in the big city, trust wasn't given, it was signed. The money started to grow. My bank account rose like those glass buildings. And every time I saw those numbers, I felt like I was proving something to my father. Even though he had never asked for any proof. But at night, in the silence of my elegant apartment, I felt something strange. Success made noise during the day. But it was far too silent at night. And for the first time, I began to understand that making money and making peace were two different things. The first commitment I broke didn't seem like much. It was just a contract. A small supplier from the countryside who relied on the deal to keep his business running. But a better opportunity arose. More profit, less waiting. My boss called me into the glass office and said, "Business isn't personal." I repeated that phrase to myself as I signed the new agreement. I gained recognition. I gained bonuses. I gained respect. Or at least the kind of respect measured in results. But I lost something I didn't know how to name. That night, I received an email from the old supplier. He didn't beg. He simply thanked me for the past partnership and said he would try to find another solution. There was dignity in his words. And that hurt more than any accusation. I closed my laptop, poured a glass of whiskey, and tried to convince myself that this was just how the world worked. But deep down, a memory kept coming back. My father saying that a man's word was his true net worth. In the big city, net worth was a number. In my town, net worth was your name. And that night, for the first time, I felt my name getting lighter, while my account got heavier. Years passed as if someone had pressed the fast-forward button. Promotions, better cars, a bigger apartment. I was living what they called success. Then the phone rang on an ordinary Tuesday morning. The voice on the other end was familiar, but sounded distant. My father had passed away during the night. The world didn't stop. Cars kept honking. Markets kept opening. But something inside me stopped completely. I drove back to town alone for hours. Every mile felt like a confrontation with old choices. When I walked into the store, the bell on the door still made the same sound it did when I was a child. Nothing had changed. Except for him. The brown notebook was on the counter. I opened it slowly. Names, dates, small debts, and next to each one, the same word written in his firm handwriting: paid. There were no lawsuits, no lawyers, no collateral. There was trust. And there, holding that simple notebook, I realized something overwhelming. My father was never a rich man, but he died a millionaire in what truly mattered. I stayed in town to settle things. At first, I thought it would be quick. Sell the store, handle the paperwork, go back to my real life. But something made me stay a few more days. People started showing up. An elderly farmer took off his hat as he entered. A retired teacher brought a pie. A mechanic shook my hand firmly. Each of them had a story about my father. He let me pay after the harvest. He trusted me when no one else would. He never made me feel small. Nobody mentioned how much money he had. Nobody talked about profits. They talked about character. Sitting behind that counter, I realized the brutal contrast. In the big city, I was respected for what I produced. There, my father was loved for who he was. The silence of the empty store taught me more than years of meetings. I had spent my life trying to grow upward. My father grew inward. And perhaps that was the true measure of a man. The decision didn't hit me like a lightning bolt. It came as a constant whisper. Every time I closed the store door to leave, something told me I wasn't finished there yet. On the last night before heading back to the big city, I stood alone behind the counter. I ran my hand over the worn wood. I looked at the simple shelves. I breathed in the same smell of coffee that marked my childhood. I thought about the tall buildings, the contracts, the numbers glowing on the screen. And I thought about the brown notebook. The next morning, instead of hitting the road, I went to the local bank. I withdrew my savings. I paid off the store's debts. I had the storefront repaired. I reopened the doors a week later. On the first day, a young man walked in timidly. He said he was out of money and needed groceries until next week's payday. For a second, the big city man inside me hesitated. But my father's son picked up a new notebook. I wrote down his name. I closed the notebook. And I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. The store never went back to being just a business. It became a meeting place once again. Men arrived early for coffee before work. Children came in after school to buy candy with crumpled coins in their hands. Old friends leaned against the counter telling stories that had been told 1,000 times. And I began to notice something curious. Money came in, but it wasn't what made the place prosper. It was the laughter. It was the trust. It was the fact that there, nobody had to prove who they were. One afternoon, I found the old cash register my father had kept in the back. I cleaned it, had it fixed, and put it back on the counter. When it rang for the first time, that metallic clink echoing through the store, something inside me aligned. I wasn't there to get rich. I was there to continue something bigger than myself. I began to understand that true growth isn't vertical. It's not about taller buildings. It's about deeper roots. And my roots were there. On that corner. In that town. In that story. One day, the young man who had bought on credit came back. He placed the exact amount of money on the counter. He looked me in the eye and said, "Thank you for trusting me." It wasn't the value of the bills that struck me. It was the steadiness in his voice. There was the cycle repeating itself. The same trust my father planted, now blooming in another generation. I finally understood something simple yet powerful. A dollar only has value because we all agree it does. But trust. Trust is built. It is cultivated. It is chosen every single day. I spent years believing that wealth was about accumulating. But true wealth is about multiplying. Multiplying respect. Multiplying dignity. Multiplying opportunity. In the big city, I learned how to close deals. In that store, I learned how to open doors. And perhaps that is the difference between success and significance. Today, when the sun sets over Main Street and the golden light pours through the store windows, I sometimes pause for a moment. I listen to the creak of the floor, the murmur of conversations, and every now and then, the sound of the old cash register. But what truly echoes isn't the money. It's the legacy. I didn't build an empire. I didn't appear in magazines. I didn't become a millionaire like I imagined at 22. But I built something that cannot be stolen or devalued. I built trust. And every time someone shakes my hand firmly, I know I am honoring my father's name. Maybe the world has changed. Maybe today we pay with cards, apps, and invisible numbers. But we can still choose what has value. And I choose that my word still means something. If you feel like the world is moving too fast, if you feel like old values are disappearing, remember, character never goes out of style. Money comes and goes. Markets rise and fall. Technologies change. But honor remains. Maybe you don't have a corner store. Maybe you don't have a brown notebook. But you have something more powerful than any currency, your word. And today, you can decide that it's worth something. If this story touched your heart, write in the comments, character still matters. I read every message. And if you like stories that remind us of what truly matters, subscribe to the channel. Here, we don't just tell stories. We remind ourselves of who we are. Until next time. And may your life be rich in what truly has value.